And I began to search, and I would roam the jungle searching for more spirits to help me control the spirits that I had. I even called other shamans to come and chant for me, to help me, to teach me how to straighten out my life, how to control the spirits that I had. And then I began to realize that they were in the same bondage that I was in. And this shaman that I had so much confidence in just told me to take more and more powerful drugs. So I did that, but it did not help. And my head was hurting all the time. And the hate within me began to grow more and more. And I decided it was best for me just to die. But when I was living that kind of life, when I realized now that they were out to destroy even me, when I was in complete and utter despair, when I finally had come to realize that I would never find anything to set me free, everywhere I searched, there was nothing to bring me happiness and peace. I roamed the jungle looking for things that would set me free. But I was just in despair. And I thought, well, I'll just roam out into the jungle and get lost out there and just die out there. When I was in that, tied up by Yanomamo, the spirit of evil, and I lived that way, I'll tell you how I was set free now. My friend's father, when he was a very small child, came to live in our village. And when I saw him, I thought to myself, what does this foreigner come for? He's just as poor as we are. And it scared me. But by that time, he knew a little bit of our language already. And when I looked into his face, I saw a face of love and a face of peace and a face of joy, a heart that was filled with a joy that I did not have. And I thought to myself, why did he come? What's his reason for coming? He certainly didn't come to bring us food, because he doesn't even have any food. And I looked at his small children, and I could hear them crying at night because they were hungry. And we didn't have anything either, and we were hungry, and it made us sad because we weren't able to give them food. And my village was really saddened because his children were crying at night with hunger. But we ourselves as a village was moving and fleeing from raiders, so we were really hungry at the time too. But in spite of all that I saw, he loved us. And he came and he showed us, Yanomamo, that he really truly loved us. And he saw the suffering and the misery that I was in. He saw the club fights and the fighting that we were in, how our children lived in fear. How our children would flee out into the jungle because of our fighting and our warfare. And he sat down with me and he said, my friend, I see the suffering and misery that you're living in. And at one time, I lived that way too. I too was in bondage the same way you are. But I've been set free by a great spirit. The greatest of all spirits has set me free. And I become very excited in my heart because I knew who he was talking. My heart began to pound, and my chest got excited, and the spirits within me clamored for me to leave, that this man was our enemy, that this man was going to destroy us. But as I looked into his face, I saw something that I really desired. And he told me about the Great Spirit. In my language, we call the spirit that you call God, we call him Yaibara. And he told me about Jesus. And he told me that God sent his son to this earth to chop a trail for us to heaven. And I asked him, well, where does this being live? And he told me he lives in heaven. And I knew him. All of us shamans know him. We know the enemy. We know the enemy spirit that lives up there where it's beautiful, where there's beings praising him all the time. And I said, yes, I know him. I know who you're talking about, but isn't he an enemy? Up where all these beings in his presence are praising him. I know him, but he's an enemy. My spirits have told me that he's an enemy. But I realize now that he was never an enemy. And I became a person that really I'm happy now that someone came and told me. I know now that if this person had never come, I would never have found Christ. And the spirits that I had me in bondage, I would have never been able to break free. He told me to cry out to this spirit, that I had been crying out to spirits all my life, to cry out to this spirit. So I went off into the jungle by myself. There was a great big tree blown over by the wind, so I sat down on top of this tree. All by myself out in the jungle, I began to chant or talk to this spirit that I had so feared all my life. And I was in a battle with the spirits that were within me and the spirit that I was crying out to. I had tried by myself to make the spirits leave me, but they wouldn't. So I began to cry out to the spirit to set me free. And I said, if you're really there, I hear that you can set people free. I hear that you've sent your son. And I've seen the light of your love in the face of this man. You see the bondage that I'm in. If you can set me free, set me free. You see the spirits that have me in bondage. And I cried that out to this spirit. And I've been set free. I'm a person that now has been made alive. I was dead. I've been set free. I do want you to know, though, that the battle that I was in, the battle for my soul, as I was praying this prayer to the Great Spirit, I saw the chief of all of our evil spirits. He came running up to me, and he began to bind me in this cage, and he built a cage around me. He went back out into the jungle and he gathered incense, and he came to me and he grabbed me by both arms and began to dance with me. And he danced with me and he began to tell me, "You're mine, I'll never let you go." He held incense to my nose, and I began to give in to his power. And I began to think, well, this is what I've hunted for. This is what I've searched for. This is the spirit that I've always needed. And he began to dance with me. But I cried out to God anyway. I cried out to the spirit, and I saw a blinding bright light. And I felt someone grab me away and said, "Get away from here. Leave him alone. He's mine." And Satan and the spirits within me fled, and they've never been back. And I will never return to the bondage that I was in. Never. That's how I was by the evil spirits. That's the bondage that I was in. If you ask this man, would you ever like to be tied up by a snake again? He's going to say no. And that's how I am. I never want to go back into the bondage that I've been set free from. And I'm challenging you, never allow Satan to tie you back up in the bondage that you've been set free from. I never want him to touch me again. I want to be close to the greatest of all spirits. I don't want to get far away from him anymore.